Hey everyone, it's Joe Glines, and today I'm talking with Sebastian out of Germany. Hi, Sebastian.
All right.
Hey, so and actually we're really doing this raw. Usually I'll have a little more back and forth. We exchange a lot of emails. Don't get me wrong, but we haven't actually talked a lot with each other. So tell me a little bit about your background. So it sounds like from what you mentioned earlier that you maybe are a programmer, or at least you work in a lot of environments. It sounds like.
Yes, I feel like a programmer, and I'm a programmer since about 2001, but more into web development.
Oh, okay.
And I started using AutoHotkey because I switched often the editor, the IDE,
Yeah.
and don't want to switch the shortcuts all the time.
Yeah, yeah. Um, that's all. So actually, so I'm going to be selfish here and say, so I'm going to guess if you're doing the website stuff more, you have a pretty good grasp of the DOM. Of
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes. So I
Okay.
used PHP, uh, Java, and a little bit JavaScript, and also other languages like Visual Basic and C
Uh-huh.
Sharp and uh, C++
Cool.
a little bit, and uh, and I used it also the AutoHotkey for behavior-driven development or for testing I have
Yeah.
so image search and moved around the buttons. So if
Yeah.
I test some tools or some websites, so I don't want to click all the time the send button or open the page. So that
Sure.
is
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I tried looking for. Do you know what Meetup is? It's a it's a site where you can have groups, and then people say like, oh, I'm a Python developer, and they'll have a group meetups for Pythons. So I tried finding an AutoHotkey one or create, but no, there were none, of course. So I found one on quality and testing and stuff, and so I actually went to that, and there was a lot of crossover in the skills that we use different tools, but they did a lot of the regression testing and testing of websites and verifying, and so it was the closest I've come to finding a group I used to go to a Python meetups, but of course that's all about Python, and they're very different to me than like AutoHotkey people, because
Yes,
AutoHotkey
I
people
tried to
are,
do it in SQLite because I thought, okay, that's platform independent. So
uh-huh,
Java, so you can use it for Linux or everything.
yep,
But it seems to me more easy to do it in AutoHotkey because I also used AutoHotkey a long time then, and SQL is a little bit, and it seems to be slower. So
hmm,
Java, it's if I'm starting Java, it's a little bit it takes time, and so
sure, yeah,
at AutoHotkey, it's not starting. It's there for seconds. That's
yes,
very good.
that's right. There is no real delay, right? It's
Yeah.
yeah, it's there right then.
Easy thing. So maybe if have your very big projects, then maybe it's different.
Yeah, yeah, agree. We actually, Jackie and I, the guy, I can't remember. Have you attended a webinar, or have you seen the webinars?
I heard about it, but I not.
Okay.
Maybe I looked a little short seconds into it.
My colleague Jackie Schnook, he's out of Denmark, and so him and I started these like 2.5 years ago. We started doing monthly webinars, and we were doing them, and we just now kind of wrapped up the formal training of them, and now we have it's more like a hangout. We'll go there and we'll talk about what we're working on and maybe share some code, but we're not actually training people, unless they want a specific topic. But anyway, him and I are doing these. We call them quick chats. It's basically like a podcast now, where him and I will talk through an issue. And the other day we were talking about the um, the negatives of AutoHotkey, like the non-strengths of it compared to other languages.
Mhm.
And then next week we're going to do the positives, and that was a big one. Was like,
Mhm.
well, it's not as fast in some ways. Like you're doing something really intensive, and data, needs a ton of data, or doing a lot of math, huge millions and millions of things.
Mhm.
But again, it's also part of it's the development side, which you mentioned too, right? Is like I can write a code in a minute, and
Yeah.
get it working. I mean, it's like that. Um, So just
Yeah.
because I'd like to get this in the recording, we were chatting earlier, but I was mentioning to him.
It's starting very fast. So I'm not
Yeah.
quite sure if I could do it in another language. So started in so very fast.
Yeah.
So I have
No.
I like very much. I started a little bit programming with how it's called. Not the Java, the Kotlin. Kotlin, you probably know Kotlin or Go. Google
Go.
from
Yeah.
Google or Go, and Kotlin that's from JetBrains. It's so they are a little bit similar, Kotlin and Go, and programming with them is very cool. So the IDE is very good.
Okay.
That's it is same like AHK Studio and a little bit better, I think.
Okay. Cool.
So that's very cool. So and if it's possible to do such thing with Kotlin, so then I switch to Kotlin, but it's not possible. So in one dream I have want to have a mashup, so a adapter between AutoHotkey and Kotlin also. That's I think it's a good thing. I have a dream of it. So
Can you spell out? I'm not getting. It's a hotkey. You want it with hotkey and Hotlander? I'm not quite hearing it.
Kotlin, what is Kotlin is? That's
Yeah.
a meta. That's a kind of pre-parser of Java.
Oh, okay.
That's
Okay.
there are maybe about 20 million users or 40 million. I don't know.
Can you spell it for me? Maybe I'm just not understanding it.
I'm not good to write it down, so because I'm not good spelling English.
Oh, yeah, no worries.
So
Huh. Okay. All right. Yeah, that's what I was hearing. I've never heard of it.
yes, it's maybe 5-6 years old,
Okay.
and there are so super languages about Go and Kotlin. So that's the most leading languages for very pushed and very much marketing behind. And yes, they're really good. And in Kotlin, you could transfer the source code to JavaScript or to some other languages. But it takes time to start, and you
Yeah.
could not automatic make some such things in like Auto.
Cool. No, that's.
But
Neat.
I have written something like an adapter for shortcuts. So in AutoHotkey, I wrote a tool. By typing, it's like it's a list. It's always shows me some words, and then it just pull down list, and I could send the words to another programming language by command line.
Yeah.
So, for example, to Kotlin or something else.
Cool. Yeah. Especially when I used to do a lot of SQL coding, I had something that was similar to that. I'd put in like all the table names that were very common, and I could just start typing, and it would auto assist, and what I want, and then send it to whatever screen. But it's AutoHotkey. It's so flexible, right? And it's so easy to do. Very cool. So how did you start using AutoHotkey?
Yes, shortcuts, and then image screens. They have I wrote own library for it, and yes, testing tools with screen reading. Yes, that's good. And then I make some parser to rename some folders and files into the folders. So recursive renaming files. And then I started to make some pre-parser because include files I could not rename, so on the running time. So I have a pre-parser for commands. They are only could change before running.
Okay.
And I wrote a backup tool in AutoHotkey. So
Yeah. Yeah, I wrote one as well. Yeah, it's a good when you're I'm not a programmer in any way. So for me, that was a really good exercise of studying, working with files and folders and extensions and what do you call it? Recursive looping, right? It has a lot of that kind of aspects to it. You probably just alluded to the reasons, but since you've worked in quite a few other languages, why do you pick AutoHotkey like for certain tasks? I know obviously one was the speed you mentioned, right? What are other things of like, oh, this is when I use AutoHotkey, it's when I'm doing something like this?
Yeah, the community is very good. If I have a problem, then it takes minutes or maybe half an hour, then I have answers. So
and the people are so nice too, right?
Yeah,
they're nice. So helpful. Yeah,
and they're always friendly. If I ask something in Stack Overflow, then I have to be a little bit nervous. They downgrade me also if the question is stupid. There's always nice people there.
Yeah, when I mentioned before, we were similar in the when I first started using AutoHotkey, it was years before I went past hotkeys and hot strings. But I switched jobs and I was working in internet marketing and I was starting to learn web scraping and object-oriented programming, which I knew nothing about. So all I was doing was reading the AutoHotkey forum. And then, of course, I would try to read some other sites. But I to your point, I was so afraid to post something on the forum because I'm like, I don't grasp any of this, the vocabulary, any of the stuff. But after a while, I'm like, you know what? Most people, right, if you do your homework and well explain it out and put in your code, and don't just say my script doesn't work, right? You're like, well, okay, how are you using it? Give an example. People are amazingly helpful. Jackie, my colleague, he was he would go in and he would, he was like a spam officer, but he'd also answer gamers especially ask the same question over. I want to send Control T. How do I send Control T? It's like, this has been asked, 1,000 times and people don't search. And yet this is where I'm not that kind of person. I would just be like, Google, I wouldn't tell him the answer. I would say Google. Anyway, he's a much nicer person than me.
What's also a nice thing in AutoHotkey, you could type a little bit more lazy. So you don't need to define the variables. So
yes,
that's an advantage and a disadvantage to the same time. So, but most of the time I enjoy it. So only type a variable and say that's the content. So I don't know if it's possible long time to quote strings without how it's called quotation.
Double quotes, yeah.
So now we could do it without, only with an equal sign, and then wrote a string. So maybe it's not good style, or
that one. That's what. Actually, I use the method you just talked about when I have a regular expression that I'm trying to search for, and inside the regular expression is a double quote. And I'm like, oh, you know what? I'll put it in a variable with the string, and then I just search for it that way. But otherwise, I agree. It's it's.
In regular expression, I know that's a good good reason because of the double quotes.
Yeah.
Yes. Or you put the double quotes inside of a variable, and put it then into the regular expression, maybe.
Yeah. That was one of the things when I was learning Python. At first, I didn't like it. It was so strict, and especially the indentions and all this stuff. Although I'll tell you, I still couldn't stand the case sensitive. I messed up. I wasted so much time just because one time I'd uppercase it, one time I lowercase it. Right, and that took me. For the love of God, like why? Anyway, but once I got used to having one method, like, oh, I need a for loop. This is the way you do it. This is the only way you do it. Right?
There are many for loops in AutoHotkey. So.
Yeah, so it's a perfect example because in Python there's like one way to do what you want. Okay. Yeah.
And do you think that's an advantage?
I do. I didn't at first, but looking back, like once I learned that one way, then I know the way, right?
Okay.
it's not so confusing because there's so many different ways, but it's
And
a little restrictive.
I'm not quite sure if it's a good thing to have so many possibilities.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
maybe I don't.
Yeah, it's hard to, I think a lot of it's the just preference, right? But for me, it was the discipline. Actually, you mentioned earlier too. Was it actually 10 years ago? I took a class in VBA, and I got so annoyed because I would get hung up on just defining my stupid variables. I couldn't get into my program because I wasn't defining the variables, and I'm like, and then actually someone told me later, well, you can just make that optional. It doesn't have to be, you can turn that off. And I'm like, okay, no one told me that. But I love that about AutoHotkey is like, I don't have to do all that background junk. I can just write some code and it's reasonably fast, executing wise, but fast for me to write it.
For me, sometimes debugging a little bit difficult in AutoHotkey. I think there's in AutoHotkey Studio, there's a debugger included.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
But my scripts often not work with this debugger because they're a little bit unusual or how.
Yeah. If it's something you can share, I know Maestri, we talk almost daily. He would, if you can give him a thing and say, look in here, I'm trying to do debug and it's breaking, right? He'd probably address it. That'd be my guess, right? He likes, and actually I was going to mention, I didn't write it down. The Kotlin or the other IDE, you mentioned a different IDE that's better in some ways than AutoHotkey Studio.
Yeah.
If you could tell him, hey, I wish Studio did like this, right? If he thinks it's valuable, he'll build it in. He brought in.
I use that too. I use AutoHotkey Studio and Visual Code. How it's called? Yeah, Visual Studio Code.
Mm-hmm.
Because in Visual Studio Code, it's better for formatting of the letters. So I have UTF-8. Sometimes German umlaut are not so good supported into the AutoHotkey Studio. It's if I'm using replacement, I don't have to use replacement in AutoHotkey Studio. Then German umlaut seems to be then decoded in something strange signs. So that's nearly the big reason why I have to use AutoHotkey Studio, and a very good is the Git support in AutoHotkey Studio. So.
I know. I was talking a lot with Maestri when he was working with the encoding and handling UTF-8, and I'll tell you, like how it's amazing how much stuff you have to understand at what level in order to create like an IDE like that, right? It was way beyond my skills, and he was explaining some of the complexities to me. He started building in so you could bring in like Python, and you can bring in, I think, like PHP and HTML, and they'll do the color coding, stuff. But I'm like, wow.
And it's starting so fast. The IDE that's very fast.
Yeah.
And it's only one developer behind.
Yeah, he does it all. Yeah.
Wow.
And he's not a programmer, right? He doesn't have any training in programming, but he's just taught himself.
You don't need to be a studied programmer.
I often actually will work with him, pay him to do stuff for me, and I watch, and then I've been learning programming, so much of stuff, because I'll say like, wait a minute, why are you doing this? I can understand the code usually, but it's the thought process of how he does it that I'm like, I never would have done it that way, and I see why he does it, right? It's so much better than the way I would have done it. But when you're not a programmer, right? I had a semester, once, but I was never trained in programming. Anyway.
Yeah, the support is much better in Studio than in Studio Code.
Yeah. Okay, what, and actually, so do you work with anybody else that uses AutoHotkey?
No.
Okay.
For the moment, not. In one, I was in a full-time job. Then I showed the other people of the firm AutoHotkey for behavior-driven development or for faster testing their web pages. And but for the moment, no, I have no.
Yeah. Let's see. What do you recommend if someone's starting out with AutoHotkey? What would you recommend that they learn first? What do they do?
It's important that they have fun with it. So if it's a really beginner, then they should rewrite some text to best regards, so maybe with replacement to BG and best regards, or so hello, how are you, or so some replacements may be helpful by writing emails or so. And I think that's a good idea. And if it's a developer, then I think it's a good idea if he has could use the same shortcuts in different environments, different IDEs. That's a very good idea. So.
You know, it amazed me when I used to work in corporate world. I finally just couldn't take it anymore and quit. But I would show people, programmers, these are programmers, and I would show them how you could easily use hot strings or a hotkey to pull up your previous code, right? Your template, your snippets. And it was crazy because these are programmers, and yet they still like wouldn't do it. And they would always be typing or go find their file. And I'm like, I just don't understand. Like, you're programmers. You should jump on this, and unless they had another method, right? But they didn't. And it just always astounded me of like, I don't understand. I got anybody. I think they would.
Yeah, I think that's maybe a reason is that some in the past people thought that AutoHotkey is it's not a real program, not a real programming language, and it's not so cool like Java, and it's more so for children also. It's
in the gaming side, right? Because a lot of
gaming side, and another point is the security side. So that some people have sorrows that no, I don't want to use it. It's for hacker also. Yeah, but programmer, I think they should not think like this.
Yeah, and I think just some people, you get stuck in your ways, right, with the way you do stuff, and that's just the way they think. Like I did a video the other day how I'll use Excel when I'm writing syntax that's repetitive syntax. I'll use Excel to help me write my syntax just because it's so easy.
Yeah.
And I know I can do the same thing like in even in AutoHotkey Studio. I can do search replace and if I can get that in my brain right, I can do that. But for me, I'm just not that good at it. So I'll dump it into Excel and I can crank it out in no time.
But you know regular expressions, so I like it very much. So
I think they're like Sudoku to me. It's a fun challenge. The problem, of course, is it's a use it or lose it, right? You get into them, you do them for a while, and you really start getting it, and then there's a 3 weeks where you don't need it, and then you need it, and you're like, or you go back to one you wrote, and I'm like, I wrote this. I'm like, I don't even understand it.
But you should use it with good tools. There are so regex, Couch, or something online tools you could development them very good. So have a live preview of the results. So you should use it with some tools, not only with the text editor.
Oh.
Or you make a while loop and then a tooltip. So that's what I like to do. So 1 second sleep or half a second and tooltip, so you have always see the result of your regular expression. And I think that's one thing that every developer should learn very early. So regular expressions is not so difficult, or to know what's a word slash the word. So that's
or the boundary, or what's amazing to me was I would probably say like a third of the program, maybe that's too high. Maybe it's 20% of the programmers I talk to, they don't even know what a regular expression is. And I'm like,
that's one of the funny thing. So that's also what I don't understand, or that people so use the mouse so much. That's the regular expression and the mouse. That's some not using it. I never could understand.
Yeah.
That's so powerful. They're so powerful.
Yeah.
And I hope that no other language ever replaced a regular expression. They were very old, I think, the Perl regular expression. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Actually, I was talking with who was that? It's a friend, Ryan. He's over. It's not Germany, but it's in the neighborhood. Anyway.
Yeah.
He had, I think, a lot of Word documents that had long things in them, and he needed to do search replaces inside Word. But of course, Word has its own search replace thing.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
I hate it.
Well, and that's when and I said, well, maybe you could, use COM to use AutoHotkey, but then it dawned on me, he's like, but I'll lose the formatting, of the text and I'm like, yeah, okay, I see how, you can't do it. But yeah, well, years and years ago, this was like at least 15 years ago, probably 20 years ago, I got really good with using the search replace in Word, for doing stuff. So when you don't know anything, it was helpful, right? Why they used their own language as opposed to just using regular expressions? Because it's not like they're easier, right? I mean,
some marketing thing.
Probably.
That's not a good reason.
Yeah, someone at Microsoft's like, we'll write our own, and then it's ours, and that's the short term sounds good, and then people anyway. But I learned a lot of doing search replace in that and how to use it and how to do stuff with it. So regular expressions, I think, for me was a lot easier because I had already done a lot like that. But it's just not nearly as powerful or as intuitive. Well, I was going to say, you said regular expressions, they can be super easy, or you can really make them incredibly complex, right? It's amazing because you can have a super simple one, and actually that's the thing I love too is you can look at something so simple and someone else wrote it like a crazy long one, and someone who really knows their stuff can spot that pattern and simplify it, and it's really
you should wrote it in a tool with live preview, so maybe split it in parts, test the part.
Well, you'll appreciate this. So years ago, before Jackie's the guy that was we do the webinars, and him and I started talking because I would post questions on the forum, and then it was usually around web scraping in the DOM, and he would answer them. And I remember one particularly I was trying to get cells out of a table, and he's like, well, why don't you split the thing on the table and the TD and TR and iterate over the rows. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, where is this documented? I don't see this anywhere. He's like, well, it's just part of the DOM, and you need to study it. And I'm like, I used to do web scraping, and I'd find a table, and I would take that entire table and then write a regular expression to parse it out, the whole thing, because I didn't know how to get little stuff. And like that one post overnight just like changed, leveled me up so high, because suddenly now I could take exactly what I want from where, and it was like, oh my word. But again, where do you teach this stuff of like understanding some of these core things, right? It's not in the forum, you just kind of happen to fall into it, but like we need an outline of here's the things you should study when you're learning AutoHotkey, right? Depending on your interest, I guess.
The most important is that they have fun and
that it's useful, right? I think
maybe it's good to have use long variable names. Maybe sometimes I use very long, sometimes not, but there are some advantages.
Oh, Jackie was saying he will write out word for word what his name for his function is, and he's like, it will be like, and he said it's easier because I come back to it and I know exactly what it's doing because that's the name of it. And I'm like, that
we should comment variables or scripts, but sometimes we don't do, and we have a long function name, so the description is always there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it has to be there because you're writing it.
Yeah.
I need to adopt doing that. I don't write. My stuff is usually less than 100 lines, so it's nothing very complex for the stuff I do. But yeah, I still have gone back to my stuff, a year later and looked at it and thought someone else wrote it. It's just like I don't even understand like what I was thinking.
That's right.
But that's the other one. Have you ever gone back, especially you've been programming a lot longer than I have, and looked at like code you wrote like 5 years before and just been like, oh, like
yes, that's normal. Yes.
Yeah.
It's important to have good names. So yes, that's great. Do you make some unit testings?
What tests?
Do you make some unit testing tool scripts, testing your own scripts? So test scripts for your scripts?
No. What would you? How would that work? I don't understand.
That's sometimes there are standardized frameworks to do that. I have not used a framework. I wrote my own tests, and they're only testing the functions. There are some input and outputs, and always tested because of side effects. If I have a bigger script and I work on one piece of it, then I think, oh, well, it's everything good, and I will upload it to GitHub. But I have produced some other errors in some other places, and I have not used for a long time. And therefore, it helps me to have a test script, so it says me, hello, you produced errors in the old part of the script with some side effects, and therefore it could be helpful to have some test scripts.
So does it log the errors? I don't understand.
So okay, you could use it by a log, or you could give a feedback by a message box or so.
Okay.
I have some special message boxes. They are put always under the last one, so it's comes so like.
Is it the notify?
What?
It sounds like the notify function.
Yeah, no, that's a typical message boxes, but they have wrote them in a dynamic AutoHotkey script, so that they are working asynchronous, so that the script is not stopped by popping up the message box. So they're coming down very much message boxes, and move the first one, then all other following the first.
Oh, cool. That sounds interesting.
It looks funny.
Yeah, but that's not an AutoHotkey. You said that's something else.
That's on AutoHotkey.
Oh, really? Is that on the forum? Or?
That's a normal message box, but it's a dynamical source code. I sent the source code to doSqlWeb function, and this is they read the source code, the AutoHotkey source code, and run it in their own process and own thread, and yes, and every message box looks if there's another message box with the title with a number before, because every has a number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so. And so it's always they are always looking because of some parent message boxes. Parent message boxes.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah, but I think it's a very good way to use a simple log files. I have also log files. They have time and script name and such things. So it's very good with Notepad.
Yeah.
Reading log files with Notepad++.
Yeah. I use Cite when I'm not using AutoHotkey. I use Cite to open bigger text files to review things. Cool. Is there any other uses you can think of that you've done, or is there
sorry.
anything?
Okay. What?
Is there any other uses that you've either have done that you haven't mentioned, or that you wanted to try and haven't started on yet with AutoHotkey? Or
I have one script. I maybe could show you.
sure, I'd love to see it.
So is it possible to show it into this tool? Or?
Yeah. At the bottom of one of your windows.
Okay, I see.
Okay.
Okay. So maybe this one. Okay. Okay. You could see here's a list.
Yeah.
And if I'm typing something, so for example, set title, oh, that's not pretty cool. Tooltip, I wrote something wrong. Okay, that's some tooltips, but it's not the result what I have, what I tried to have. So I switched to another window, and this list is changing if I change the window.
Okay. Yeah.
And you could see here some functions, and I hit the Control 6, then this one is written.
Cool.
And yeah, or if I on the mouse over it, then this also written. It
Yep.
should, but it's not doing now. Number one, no, there's some error in the script. Okay, and this script is okay. There are some errors. That's very bad. And if I want to open, yes. So it should not happen. Okay. And at the beginning, there's some message that creates some list. And if I hit the number 1, then it should be create a list for me, because this list is should be already there. So that's an error. I don't know where it's from.
But I understand what you're saying, though. Theoretically, whatever, when you're typing and you see that number, you can hit the number and it'll push in what it was.
Yeah, yeah. I produced probably the error now while typing into the
script.
The script. So
yeah, I've done that plenty of times.
That's probably maybe the reason. No. Here's no. Okay, so. It's not working. No.
It could be also Zoom. Well, actually, not the error, but Zoom will interfere with hotkeys.
No, I don't know why it's not working now.
It's all right. I get the idea, though.
Yeah, that's live. I could look at typing line 601 10. So maybe if you want, so
sure.
For a moment. 600.
Sure looks pretty straightforward.
I don't see any error. Okay. Okay, I don't know.
how do you add items to your the stuff you want to have pop up?
How I add items to it? Yes, I have some. I have a folder. It's called Action List, and there are folders with the class name. For example, Notepad, and inside of this are files with the title of the app. So, for example, I want to. There's Chrome widget, and there's the title of community. The AutoHotkey community. AutoHotkey. For example, this one. And then I could use it by text editor. And then it should be there. But it's nearly empty, so it's not very interesting. Or this one. Yeah, here that's simply lines, or you could use the replacements. And you could say and then wrote welcome. That's then English. Or you could use it multi-line, welcome Fred. That's also possible. Or you could make some programming like this one and make a script like so. Send the string.
Uh-huh.
So you could use a normal AutoHotkey
Cool.
source code.
Yeah.
But you need to specify the language here. That is AutoHotkey.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because it's possible that you have some other languages.
Sure.
And it sends normally it sends this per command line. This was encoded to a string, so one line, and then it's sent it to the other programming languages, so they decode it and then interpret it. That's the source codes, and then we have the list like at the top. So maybe now it's working again. Yeah, it's better. And it if I type something wrong, it should be set title match mode. Here, set title match mode. And if I type it wrong, for example, mode set, you see that's also
it's a fuzzy match. Yeah.
Matching. Yes, it's so fuzzy.
Yeah, I find that very helpful, especially because I'm a terrible typist.
Yeah. So that's fuzzy matching. Yes, that's great. And it's if it's working, then it's very fast. There's a SQLite database behind.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just started using that in place of using XML, and man, it's fast. It's so fast.
And with the right mouse button, then you could open it.
Okay.
So now it should be open it. in the configured editor. Yeah, now it's, but that's a little bit, there's also something wrong because this is the wrong file because this is the, if you have no project, then this is the file
Oh,
which
okay.
was used. And here you could see the language that it's using AutoHotkey, and then here's the command you could use. And yeah, and I will show you the config file.
Cool.
Maybe I need to, yeah. And there's one thing I really like into the config file. And here you could see the runners down here. Yeah, the runner. The AutoHotkey is default, so therefore is no runner for AutoHotkey. Also, there's no it's not specified here because it's default. So I wrote it like this. Maybe it's not a good style to put it out here. So, but here are some runner, and it's possible to use them, or you could use the own AutoHotkey script. It's also possible to use this source code. For example, like this. Then this is the runner.
Oh, okay. It'll jump to it.
Yeah, but I could not show you that because if I'm on a page who is not read it for the moment, then it triggers the list. It's called. It's not a project. Because, for example, I know one. I could show you one. Pirate Pet. That's easy to use. Never used web pages. You see, that's never used this source code.
Yeah.
And if I hit the one, then it's should create me a list. But we have errors again. That's so terrible.
It always happens when you're only during recording when you're
yes.
somebody, right? Yeah. We all know it's so common. It works flawlessly otherwise. Yeah.
Yeah. That's terrible.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, I mean, we get the concept, right? I definitely do. I was going to ask you, you mentioned earlier, you use image search, I think, right? For clicking things. Have you heard of the function find text?
Yes. I heard it, you showed it in one video, but I not find it on the forum. Or there are some source codes about it in the forum, but I was too lazy to put them together.
No worries. Yeah, the biggest advantage, I think it's often more accurate, but it's probably still close. What I really like though is I don't have to have a local file on my computer, and that is the biggest thing to me. And it has a built-in tool for dragging what you want to target, and it automatically creates the text for what it's going to look for, or the algorithm, however you want to phrase it. But yeah, that's cool. I mean, if you're happy with image search, then I'd stick with it. But the other one, I can get working in something in like seconds. It's so easy to flag what I want to click, or send text to.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
One time I tried to make some automation with a bank web page, and they all the time they change the background.
Yeah.
They make change the background color a little bit, fade out, and therefore I need then bookmarklet that change the background to white.
Yeah.
Everything white and gray or so. And then I could automate it again. So downloading my my bank
Yeah.
reports or something.
Yeah, a buddy of mine who he's been a Java programmer for over 20 years, and he's not only that, but he's brilliant, right? He's top of the line, as good as it gets. He had to get like 2 years worth of his bank statements, and it was a really painful process to log in, click the file, get it, save it, and he's like, "Hey, is this something you could automate?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So I did it for him, but it was just, it's like, AutoHotkey has its time when it's so easy compared to starting from something from scratch and writing that. 'Cause that's the other thing is, like, I love is, especially with IE, right? I hate IE, but the fact that I can have an open browser, get where I want to be, and then hit a hotkey to have it go grab and do stuff with that, like, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's very different to me than a lot of other people who talk about web scraping, and they're really talking about going and just getting a bunch of data, but not stuff I'm working on right now, right? And I think that's just a big difference. Of course, you could hopefully load the same page, get the URL and then load it the other tool, but it may or may not, come out the same way. You may not be logged in, who knows?
Yeah.
And that's the other one. Yeah. I did a little with Python, but trying to determine the what is going on with IE. I can literally see what's happening and what's breaking. When you're doing it all with a headless, source with data syntax, I guess you got, maybe if you're a good programmer, you can understand it, right? But boy, I don't think that's me. So yeah.
Fine text don't use images. That's great. That's very cool.
Yeah.
And but it's not. Is this really working on every only on text, or?
No. It works. It's a terribly named function, because I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said it only works on text. It works on anything, right? It's just, it looks for the image. It encodes it into something that's like a 0 or a 1 and a representation, but it does it really fast, and it's highly reliable. You can tell it whether you want grayscale or black and white, or no, sorry, different. Anyway, it breaks it down to really it's 2 colors, and but it's really fast, and I've had really good accuracy with it. I've been very happy. I have it as I can launch it as a hotkey, add it in, and then what I didn't like was he has it where it will move the mouse there, but then I'm like, well, why don't if I'm going to move the mouse there, I want to be able to either click it, double click it, or send text to it, and then I want to also say, actually, now go back where the mouse was, move it back to where it was. And so I wrapped an earlier version of what he had with that functionality. And then he updated, someone who's like, hey, wouldn't it be great if we could do multiple searches and some other stuff? And I've never had the need for it. I think it's more for gamers, right? So you can be doing multiple things at a time, but I don't know. So I just never upgraded mine because I was happy with it. And I'm one of those, if something works, I'm not going to change it unless there's a really, a good reason to.
Some Japanese people, or I don't know, maybe from China, they put the images inside of the memory, and they have some performance faster script done. But I read it in the AutoHotkey forum.
Yeah.
If you say it's fast, then it's probably mine actually. So on LinkedIn, I have over 15,000 connections, and I realized, like, in my what's it called, my homepage, I see all these posts from people and I'm like, what, I connected to them, but I don't really care to see like what they're posting. So I wanted to automate clicking unfollow, and going through it, and I could have
spent more time and done it programmatically with the DOM, but I was just like, I just want to get this done. And so I used the find text. Well, I wrote it, and it was like, it would click it. And then I'm like, well, wait, what's going on? The problem was it would click it, and it would click it so fast that the web page didn't update soon enough to say it was unfollow instead of follow. So click it again. And then, so I actually had to slow it down because it was so fast. It just kept clicking the same one. And it would turn it back on and then turn it off and turn it back on before the web page even responded.
Fast enough.
Yeah. So I'm like, oh, I needed to add a little sleep there just because I let it run, in the background. I'm like, all right. But I find it. The other thing is, of course, if you can restrict where it's looking, if you're not looking across all of your desktops, if you're looking in a given range, much faster.
I thought in your programming style, you also, like me, so you put the brackets behind the command, and not like this one.
Yeah, I much prefer. I don't know why. Like, that really drives me nuts. I don't know why, but it does.
Yes, most of people write it like this one, but I always use it like this one. I think I do it because of the space.
Yeah, it seems like just a wasted line, right? That it does nothing.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe.
I'd even argue with that line 13. Why does the, your ending bracket? Why does that have to be on its own line?
Sorry.
I'll show you in a second. Go ahead and finish what you're doing.
Okay. What do you say?
Well, add the brackets like you had them at the end of 11 and on 13.
I deleted it because I want to show that that could be maybe a problem if you have you could maybe don't see the error like this. So if you have some bracket, then I have forget it also. Maybe if you have a style like this, then
maybe, but the folding, at least in Studio, it shows you the folding, right? And that picks up off the brackets. So if you don't see the folding on the left, then you should know there's an issue. You know what I mean with the folding? The little plus
folding.
on the left?
Do you see a folding? No.
So
Visual Studio, I think that it's not. There's a folding.
There it goes.
Yes,
there it goes.
Right.
Yeah.
I never saw it. And okay. Okay.
So if that other bracket's not there, it can't fold it. But see, yours isn't automatically showing that. Studio, and maybe you can just change that if you wanted to, right?
Okay, that's wrong, or?
See, that's weird. It actually is showing.
Maybe.
It's extending it, but it doesn't show you where it closes.
Yeah. Okay, that's funny.
Well, you lost your front, or maybe you meant to. You're at the end of 15. You don't have the.
Okay, because it's only closing the first. No.
Well, but you don't have an ending bracket at 15.
Yes, I did this
you meant
to test Visual Studio Code, and it's not recognized that that this is not consist to the content.
Right.
It works like another part is also part of the content. That's wrong.
Yeah.
So it's closing.
Yeah.
Wrong.
Right. Yeah. How would it know to stop there? Right. There's no reason why.
Yeah.
It shouldn't keep going. So go back and add the one at the end of line 15, or sorry, end line 15, the curly one. Yeah. Now what I was saying is, to me, why does line 19 have to be on line 19? Why can't it be at the end of line 18? Right? It'd be one less line. So cut that one and put it at the end of line. I know this doesn't work, but I'm just saying I wish it did. I wish I could have what's on row 19 at the very end of row 18. Right? Like, why wouldn't that work? Right? I mean, to me, like, it's the end. Why does it have to be on its own row?
Okay. I don't know how it is usually working in Visual in AutoHotkey. Is that allowed?
No, it's not. I'm just saying, I wish it did. That's how much I hate having the extra lines, right? Of why do I have to have it on its own line, right?
But I like to use it, to have it on a separate line at the beginning.
The other one I'm sure you've used are ternaries, right? Which is another.
That's very good.
Yeah, yeah. I love getting it down where it's just one line and it does it all. But
yeah.
But that's the other, you know, unless you work with them a lot, they get really hard to read when you're not used to them.
Yeah.
But you can nest that, like you could do that whole, well, actually the one below is just one if, but you know, you can have multiple things in one, and it they're just amazingly powerful. But when I go back to read it later, I'm like, I can't understand it, right? I can understand it when I wrote it, but when I go back to read it later, I'm like, I'm hopeless. And so I've stopped actually using them unless it's just a simple A or B. I can figure that one out. But when I start nesting it, I'm like, it's just confusing. Maestria, the author of AutoHotkey Expert, he'll build like 8 levels, you know, and I'm like, how do you keep that in your head of what is going on where? It's beyond me.
Maybe I could show you one thing inside of the config file. There are some editors inside of the config, and I have maybe it's opened again. I have here the editors, and because of the German spelling, I have set the Visual Studio Code to number 1st and the AutoHotkey Studio to 2nd. Because for scripting, I like using AutoHotkey Studio more than the Visual Studio Code, as we told actually. And there's a fallback. If this one is not working, then it tries another one, and then the 3rd and the 4th, 5, 6. And if they're all not working, then it's using edit.
Yeah.
Because in Windows, edit is always there. So,
yeah.
Or it's called in English, it's Notepad, or the Node. It's called Node, I think.
Notepad. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's
then
hilarious.
The fallback. Wow, that's a
lot.
And
this is also pre-parsing, because this is not possible to write in typical AutoHotkey. You probably know. In typical AutoHotkey, you need to write something like this. It's a simple pre-parsing script I have.
Yeah.
And it reads the config file, and if it's changed, if I save it, then it's creating a minified config file with a simple file timestamp comparison.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, that's a bit. I think that's a little bit difficult to read if that's everything on one line.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it I like lining things up when it makes sense, like you had it originally. But yeah, it just depends if I expect I'm going to be back in it and editing it later.
Yeah, you could see the code runners in one line. But yes, if you know what is the content, then some editors have a soft wrap. So probably every editor has soft wrap. I don't know how it's the shortcut for. But then it's a little bit better to understand. Anyway.
In this one, this is Studio or Visual Studio, right? You can do the multi-line typing, right?
I'm not professional. I'm not good in this. I not used it a lot. Maybe you could switch the monitor and you show me.
Yeah, well, yeah. Let me find my toolbar.
It's possible in AutoHotkey Studio, but I don't know how.
Oh, it's yeah, and I'm not great at it, but I can definitely demonstrate it. Let me. I don't want to mess up one of my main scripts. Let me create a new file. And actually, the one thing with Studio Times is if it'll work with like a blank file, you can run it, but I'm going to give it a name just so, because sometimes if you don't actually give it your own name, I experience a little weirdness with it. Oh.
Mm-hmm.
So first off, you can come in, and I can hold down Alt and click across.
Oh, it's okay.
Right. But what's really cool is, and let me see if I can do it. I have notes somewhere because Chad or Maestri walked me through this a couple times. Select word, because it's a little complicated. Because let me first describe it, and then I'll see if I can do it. So you can highlight the area and lock your search to just that area, so the rest of your script it doesn't affect. And then you can say, hey, look for the word typing, and then it will find all the typings. And then actually, let me make these at different levels. So I think I can still do this. I'm going to do a search. I'm going to do Control F, and I'm going to find more. Why isn't there other? Oh, wait, oh, I'm sorry, typing. I was supposed to find typing.
Mm-hmm.
So see how it's found all of them, right?
Yeah.
And I think if I hit escape now that, see my caret is gold,
Yes.
the blinking part is gold, that means I have multi-line selected.
Yeah.
Now I can type, and notice it did it everywhere,
Yes,
right?
Yes.
Yeah,
I had
but
this before, but it was an exit. I searched something, and then
gotcha.
then
Yeah.
Then my script is changing, and then I was.
Yeah, trust me, it was annoying for me, and I had to get better at when I noticed that because when that's gold, and the other thing is like the yellow, that means you're in multi-line. Like, watch what happens when I hit escape. Now I'm just on the one.
That's
right. So because at first it drove me nuts. I'm like, what? I ended up screwing up because the other things it found were outside of the visual. I couldn't see it, and I didn't know it was doing it somewhere else. And so it's still now it's a. But
is it dangerous if it's do the replacement and the whole script if you have 20 sites of script?
Yeah. Let me see.
But if you do it selected, then it's better.
Yeah, and that's
only the selection.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
Oh, that's very good.
How to lock it, and there's just a way to lock it to just that section. Maybe it's Control F1. Control F1. There we go. Now, no matter what I do, these are purple. It's locked just to this. Yeah. I don't use it a lot, so that's why I don't know the hotkeys. But now, and let me add a little more here.
Okay, next time I will learn that.
Yeah. So now
I was too old for learn such new techniques. So now I will do it. Ah, yes, it's working. Control F1.
See how it didn't do the bottom two, right? Because those are outside of where it's working.
Mm-hmm.
I should have also. Let me undo this and demonstrate one more. So I'm still going to do the control. I'm going to do typing. I'm going to find it. I hit once escape. Now, if I want to keep typing, I can arrow one to the right. Now it doesn't replace typing. Does that make sense? So you may want to find the word, but you don't want to replace it. Of course, you could retype it. But if you just arrow over one, it allows you to keep what's there. You can go left or right; it doesn't matter. But that was the one thing I loved once I saw it, because I'm like, you know what, this comes up more often than you think, right?
Yeah.
And it's Site, which is what I used to use, and I think I have it open here. Site, I can do something similar, but all I can do, where's my cursor?
Notepad also could do it, then, but it's new. I think Notepad++. I saw it one time. I don't know how long it's working, but yes.
So I can do multi-line in Site, but I can't do it when it's not a linear line.
Oh.
Right, and so I don't know about Notepad++.
Mm-hmm.
Oops. But that was the one I'm like, oh, I love, because sometimes the things aren't lined up, and that's where Studio kicks butt. He's got some amazing other stuff built into there. There's auto numbering. You could have it sequentially, like you could put in 1, and then it would put in like 1 in the first one, and 2 in the second one, and 3 in the third one, and 4 in the fourth, and so on. I'm not good enough at it to demonstrate it, but I've seen him do it, and it's impressive. But yeah, that one.
What do you think about the future of AutoHotkey Studio? Do you think that Notepad++, that visual code sometimes time?
Here's the thing. I haven't seen, I don't pay attention to Notepad++, so I can't comment on it.
I mean Studio Node.
I know, but
Code. Do you think that one time everybody using Studio Code?
I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to say, right?
But that's very powerful. AutoHotkey Studios.
It is. He's done an amazing job. I leave Site when I have really big files, or I also, because I have I think 80 languages that I can open and have the IntelliSense. I've also customized, a lot of things about it that I like. But so Maestrith and I, this is like 3 years ago. He somehow he said, "Hey, would you like a review of AutoHotkey Studio?" And so I said, "Well, I'm a pretty big, strong believer in Site." And so we spent like 2.5 to 3 hours. I recorded the video; it's on YouTube. But I'm like, "Well, I do this in Site. How would I do this in Studio?" And almost everything that I wanted was either already built in, and if it wasn't, within a couple minutes, he integrated it, like the ability where. So if I'm under here, see how your name highlights, because there's more than one instance of it, right? So he didn't have that, and like in 5 minutes he wrote that. He added it in. He made his case insensitive, which is really nice. But the other thing I love that he actually implemented that I don't have is, if you have let me get rid of this highlighting. If you have a unique word, like if there's no other word about, see how that doesn't get highlighted? But the second I add another one, and now I go on it, now they're highlighted. So if it's a unique word, it doesn't get highlighted. And so when you're writing variables, the other thing, of course, you probably know is...
that's very helpful, because maybe you have a typo and I don't see it.
Yeah.
And then if the script is not working, I don't know why. But in this one, you see where are the variables. It's very good.
The other thing I absolutely love is when I'm doing this kind of stuff, and somewhere else I had written a variable and I don't know what it was, but it was like oh, look, there it is, right? It looks in your file, and that one, that and the functionality of, it will show you, see where I am in the parameters. So here's my haystack. When I hit comma, it moves me over, right? And it keeps doing that.
Yeah, and it shows the same for user functions, right?
That's right, for your own functions. Yeah. And there's so many little things like that. That's huge. And then the ability to easily export your functions to their own files, and also to pack them back up when you want to send it to push it to the forum, right? That's, I'm like, man, it's got a lot of great stuff built into it.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah.
So I say that some German letters are not supported, or there's some problems with it. usually you don't use English as a programmer, so it should be no problem. But
Sure. Yeah.
if I have some help texts, so maybe I need German special characters. So
Well, I would write an example of like 3 sentences of what you have that doesn't work, and then
okay.
give it.
Do I have course or no? Okay. So maybe switch it.
You're gonna display.
Okay. I found it button. So okay.
Are you sharing your screen? Is that what you wanted to do?
That's a typical German word. It means house.
Are you sharing? I don't see.
You could not see it. So maybe the wrong.
Yeah, I know it's
the wrong one is here. Do you see it?
I don't see anything at the moment.
Okay. What I have. Okay.
I think you still have to hit share.
Yes, I have found it.
There we go. It's loading.
Okay. This is
okay.
Yeah, German word. It means house.
Yep.
And if I, now we have to change the editor. We have to do it in Studio.
Do you know what encoding Studio Code, Visual Studio Code is saving it as? Is it UTF-8? Is it higher than that?
I'm not quite sure. It should support UTF-8.
The Studio converts everything to UTF-8. I was just curious if for some reason you have a higher level in UTF-8, that would explain why it doesn't support it.
Yeah, that's true. So,
but that.
And if I do nothing special, so it's okay. But if I do some replacement, then it usually destroys it. If I do.
Oh, he'll love documenting this.
Okay, and go back.
I'll bet you I understand why the search replace isn't done in UTF-8.
What's difficult to me is to find the script again.
Oh, you know what? Do this. Move your mouse over to the right. Keep going, and go down. And now right-click and say split control, and then let's say split below, and then put in the Project Explorer. Now that'll show you what script you're in, right?
Okay.
And also what I love is if you jump around, if you hit Alt left and Alt right, even if they're not sequential, it'll toggle back where you were, right? Or it keeps track of what order you were in.
Yeah. But my replacement is not, I could not find again, so.
Yeah. Can you do me a favor, and after you type that, paste it in the chat? If it comes through, I want to, because I'll email this straight away, or just send it to me in an email. That's fine. You have my email.
Okay.
I'd love to have this example to show him specifically, but I'm pretty sure I know the answer is the search replace is not being done in UTF-8 format.
Okay, then there's no problem anymore. Okay, no problem.
Well, he did a lot of work, I'd say, within the last year of dealing with UTF-8. So, because some file I had
in every script I have written that it should using UTF-8, but I have all the time I have the problem with the German characters. So every time, everywhere, I have wrote it in every script at the beginning. But anyway, it's this problem.
Well, I know he did a lot of work on
getting
everything because he just stores it in UTF-8 whether you want it or not. It's what he just set it to be the default, to be the only option.
Here I have in every script this file encoding UTF-8.
Well, yeah, but that I don't believe that actually, that doesn't affect the code, the script.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's for file opening or file reading from the script.
Yeah, it won't affect how the file is saved. Yeah.
Not the script by itself. Yes. Some I do the encoding by Notepad++. I think it's recommended. Some say if you have the wrong file format, file encoding, then you should change it with Notepad++ also.
Well, we actually had a webinar on this specific topic about file encoding, how to detect, how actually, Windows and everything detects what it is. And Jean Lalonde, he's the author of Quick Access Popup. He made a little tool to show also where the bomb is and the characters and how it reads it in, and it was really fascinating. I learned so much in that one. I just wish I had seen the webinar like 5 years ago, because I used to at TI I dealt with simplified Chinese and traditional Chinese and German and Russian, and I knew nothing about the file encoding.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think hopefully it's been fixed. But I'll test a couple things with that search replace and see if it sticks. I understand from your demonstration. I understand what you're saying was happening.
Yes, so I reported it on GitHub as an issue, and I think I did a screenshot. So and therefore I never make some replacement inside of the studio, but maybe was a problem with my file encodings. Don't know.
Well, up until about approximately like a year ago, Studio didn't automatically convert everything to UTF-8. Mm-hmm. And now it's within the last year, I'd say, he's changed it where he's like, I don't care what format it's in when I get it. I bring it in and it's when I save it, it's UTF-8 and it's always UTF-8. Yeah. And he was hoping that negated some of these issues, because it was an issue. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it's I think when some files, if I create new text files also, they're often Windows files encodings, Windows 1823 or so. Yeah. And that's a problem. So if this is possible to change the default for all editors to UTF-8, that is progress.
Yeah, well, it's the thing that really fascinated me is that, how there's metadata to tell Windows and computers what like the file type is and the things that'll be it's a text file, this and that. Why in the world is there not a hidden place that I can tell that this file is this encoding, right? Because it doesn't exist. Every program has to read the file and look at the content and make a decision, right? This is stupid, right? I mean, like, I don't understand, like, why.
Yeah, I can understand like a place inside of the Windows OS to say, please try to use UTF-8 for everything.
Yeah. Well, all I want is an attribute associated to my file that I can choose to say here's the format that it is. If it's blank, okay, you can still guess. But why can't some programs set an attribute and just say, hey, this file's, this is the encoding for it. Don't guess, right? Use this encoding, because every time it guesses, and like I don't get why that's not a thing. It blows my mind.
Yeah, in future, one time.
Yeah, I had to learn, which is like what you're doing here, was I need to read in the file in a certain, and tell it, here's the format, I can do that. But the file itself can't have that data in it, right? Which is like,
Yeah.
I just don't get that.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
I have
Well,
a little
awesome.
bit, you have problem. So, what do you want to tell? What do you want to say?
I was gonna say that this has been interesting and fun.
I have a little bit problem with if I have very big lists to read them, then it takes 10 seconds or sometimes 20 seconds or so. If I change only one line in the middle of the list of the file, then it's always reading the complete list. I think I want some algorithm to jump into the middle, and then in the middle of the the first middle, and then the last middle, and then compare it to the database. And if it finds similar, then it says, okay, everything is before, then it's probably
don't bother about it.
same or so.
So when I was going to those meetups, I went to Python meetups, and there's usually like 50 Python programmers, right? And then someone would present. Well, one guy presented, he got really involved with GitHub. And so he presented on how they do their stuff. And it was very like you just described, right? Like it senses line by line, like what's different dynamically as you're doing it. And it was really mind-blowing of like the background of what's going on and how they look at the forks and things and detect the differences. And it was
comparison was really fast on GitHub. I'm impressed, really.
But that's because they're doing, like you said, they don't take the entire thing. It's like with Dropbox too, right? When like I save a file and I change one little thing, it doesn't go rewrite the entire file, right? Or like, especially like on your computer, if we were sharing it keeps track of what changed and then just makes those updates, right?
I have a shortcut to add some entry to the list, and it's always to the end of the list.
Oh, cool.
And then it's easy for my script to understand that the first part is the same, and then it's fast. Then it's updates the database and the script, and it works then.
That's a really good point, just from a programming perspective of if you know for certain you can control the length of that, what goes into it. You can record somewhere, this is how long it was. And then when you add to it, you know exactly where to start, and then you rewrite the new endpoint. But that's some good efficiencies there you can get.
It's maybe a little bit risky if you have if you add it in the middle, but you don't change the length, and the script means the length's the same, and the end looks like the same. So probably it's the same, but it's not.
I'm going to forward you this video. It's long, but it was I know. Just watch it at your convenience, right? For fun. It was these two guys. I think they were doing Python code, but they initially started out. They were comparing names, like all the people traveling in airplanes, with the like terrorist watch lists, and so they had 500 million names, some crazy long list of names that they had to compare to this other list and try to match them up and see, if there's any matches. And so when they first started, it took, if I remember right, it took something like 2 weeks for the entire thing to process. And they said they wanted to get it, I can't remember if they wanted to get it down to an hour. I think their goal was a bit ambitious to get down to an hour. But what was great about the video was they talked through what they tried. We tried this, and then we tried this, and then we rethought the problem, and they talk about the gains in efficiency. And it was really fun to listen to, of thinking outside the box and realizing what you had. They got it down to 5 minutes, right? I mean, it was super impressive in how they ended up doing it, but that they laid out like the logic and what they were trying and how they did it. And it was very fun. It was very entertaining.
I tried to use this script with the fuzzy search into the React OS system. You probably know the OS React. So I think it's in version 1.0.12 or so, but it's not updating if you are typing then in React, and it's not updating here also. then the list is not updating. So I thought about maybe if I use only tooltips, not a graphical user interface that's list view. So maybe it's better to use tooltips. Then I thought maybe then I could use such a list maybe in Linux or so. If I have a very fast Windows OS, which is very small, then I could use it in another OS like Windows or Unix or so maybe. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I don't do much with GUIs, and I know you're still talking about a tooltip versus this, but I'm just not that good at them, so I don't know. But yeah,
do you not use graphical user interfaces?
I don't write the code myself much. Maestrieth, when he does stuff for me, he'll use like he does whatever. I mean, he knows a lot of the stuff with ActiveX or using the list views and tree views, or he creates all GUIs, and he does it so fast. He'll do stuff in like 5 minutes that would have taken me a week. And so I just look at it and go, you know what?
Yeah,
I'm never gonna.
Yeah, I also have copied this. I not write it also by myself. I'm not good in graphical user interfaces. There's something it's called Electron. You maybe know it.
No.
That's a graphical user interface that's portable, and it works in every OS.
Oh, cool.
And it's inside there is JavaScript, and it looks like a web page. Yeah. And inside it looks like a web page, but from the outside it looks like a Windows app. That's I don't know if it's so useful. It's impressive. Don't know.
It sounds interesting. I know Maestrieth will use often, depending on how complex it is, he'll just use ActiveX to draw some stuff, and it's pretty darn fast, and he knows it well. It's easy, but mostly we just stick with common, the list view, tree views, and regular GUI, buttons, because I'm one. I don't care what it looks like. I want it to be functional and fast. So that's my programming, preferences.
Yeah.
But yeah, he does stuff that is so fast that I'll make a simple GUI, but once you start adding on multiple buttons and all that stuff, and then now I haven't.
That's the GUI I like. So config files. So do you think that's too difficult for normal user?
No, I guess it's all defined out, right? Like parameters in a function, so that makes it really easy.
Mm.
No, I think that's.
If you have a graphical user interface, then you have no chance to change the decay name. You only have to change. You could change the variables. So that's. So I usually also use most of time.
Oh yeah.
Files and not graphical user interfaces. But because I'm not used to do it, I'm not good in graphical user interfaces.
When I used to go to those Python meetups, so when I first tried learning GUIs, I started using them, and I'm like, oh, this is so confusing. And I'm like, you know what? AutoHotkey is a great language, but GUIs, like, it just doesn't do them well. And then I went to those Python meetups, and I kept asking, like I said, there's like 50 Python programmers there, right? And whenever I would talk to one, I said, like, hey, in Python, what do you use for GUI? Oh, I don't do GUIs. And the more people I talked to, the more I realized, hey, because I started playing with Tinker, and I think there was another one, TK something. And then I did Pivy, I think, or something. Anyway, and I realized GUIs are just hard, right? They're just very different. Mm-hmm. And so it wasn't AutoHotkey sucked at GUIs. It was just it's a very different topic. So I'm like, okay, I was more forgiving, because once I started playing with them back in AutoHotkey a little bit, I'm like, they're not that hard. It has a lot of little idiosyncrasies, like little things that, when you don't know what.
Hard. Yes. If I tried one graphic user interface, and then I thought okay, it's not so bad.
Yeah, and if you're
But
making,
you have to lay out the buttons by pixels. Also,
yeah,
this I saw, and maybe you could be. They have a little bit. You you have to have some tries to.
yeah,
You could not
yeah.
say put it below or so. You have to say the exact
You don't have to.
distance in pixels, or maybe
Yeah,
there's another.
it depends. You can add another one, and it will put it automatically. You can say put it to the right or put it below,
Okay.
but it then it's often it's too close. You can pad it, but it's still, to me, it just gets really confusing.
Mm.
And then you just have to understand, in a GUI, users can come in anywhere, right? They don't start here and it goes. They can start anywhere, and once I wrap my brain around that helped me get it a lot.
Mm.
But yeah, anyway, I'll use them, but I use them a lot. I don't write them myself too much. But yeah, I'll write a simple one. Cool. Well, is there anything else you wanted to talk about? I think it must be getting late for you, I'm thinking.
Should we make a break or so? Stop it or?
Yeah, I gotta go cook dinner pretty soon, but
Yeah.
I don't have to stop now. But
Yeah.
it's getting close for me.
Here it's late, so we have
Yeah.
midnight now.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm.
Well, this has been awesome. Yeah, we can plan some other time to chat, or
Okay.
I might hit you up sometime on giving me some tips for walking the DOM on a web page, right?
Yeah. Maybe.
I've gotten better, but there's so many little things about it, right, that you can do that, like, it's just that they're there, but they're like hidden gems, I guess, to me, right? When someone knows what they're doing, it's amazing, and otherwise it's a lot of work to try to find that they're there.
Yeah, I enjoyed talking to you.
Me too, Sebastian. It was great.
Very
All right,
good.
well, take care. We'll talk soon.
Mm-hmm.
Bye.
Great.